Listen, since we've brought up the Clintons, let's talk about sex trafficking.
Oh.
Listen. I hate the Clintons. Did you hear about the Abercrombie and Fitch CEO or owner or whatever it is?
Mike Jeffries.
Got indicted for sex trafficking and some, what you said, it was like Jeffrey Epstein type. A lot of predators out there, right? They sexualize people and take advantage of people for gain. And it's like, I mean, it's crazy, dude.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Onlylawsuits podcast, the podcast where we cover lawsuits going on around the country, along with moments in pop culture. Today's first subject is money in politics. Elon Musk, a few months ago, announced that he was donating $100 million to super PACs supporting Trump. And just yesterday, Bill Gates announced that he is donating $50 million to Kamala Harris. So what is your perspectives on money in politics?
First of all, I don't understand why it makes a difference at this time. Like, do politicians not have enough money? I don't exactly understand how supporting or like donating to campaign trails really works even.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how it works either. Obviously, there's a lot of people that pay attention to that, and we frankly don't, because we have to work and we to do, and we don't get paid to do that. But I'd love to be hired as a lawyer to investigate campaign finance stuff. But all in all, my view on injecting money into political campaigns, I think it's all. I really do think politicians. If you think of the theory behind politics, right? It started with the was it the Greeks?
Greeks or Romans,
right? Greeks or Romans, I believe it was. But you would get into a scenario where you would get a public forum, and have someone speak their points, and then supporters would support that person to run for and campaign for you as an individual to represent you, right? It's the concepts of politics. It's the concepts of democracy, and that's one of the initial concepts in high school. And when I really started paying attention to politics and government, that really drew me to the theoretical belief in politics. And as I've grown up and I've seen the political landscape play out, I've quickly realized it's all bullshit. It's all about money, and it's all about big corporations and individuals getting what they want when they're willing to spend the money, right? Great point is, look, Elon Musk, he's spending $100 million, for PACs with Trump. I think it is a great FU to the Democrats that used to praise him so highly a few years ago with his whole green initiative, right? With Tesla. Now he's like, he is the devil to them, right? Because he's pushing for Trump. But like some of the things that he's pushing for is, open communications and free speech on social media platforms. Like, I support that. I think anyone should be able to say whatever they want, wherever they want. And I think social media platforms are the new public forum, right? That's where politicians are getting up and spouting their, I think social media platforms should be held to that standard. But do I have a problem with him and people interjecting that much money into a politician? Yes, I do, because based on the amount of money they spend, they're just going to take that money and push it onto those public forums and, broadcast and advertise their ideology. That's literally, it's only for self-interest, because all they're doing is campaigning to get elected, to then continue to get elected, and then they go get a nice cushy job after they're done with their political office, making a ton of money. I hate the concept. I hate that. I hate that so much.
I'm on that same wavelength. I think it's mainly the very wealthy putting in enormous amounts of money to push a certain agenda. So whether that's Elon, whether that's Bill Gates, whether that's George Soros or Peter Thiel, these multi-billionaires funnel, these enormous amounts of funds to super PACs that are essentially influencing not only the campaign trail, but the administration themselves. And you brought up a really, really great point with the fact that, politics is supposed to be for the people.
Yeah.
And if one person is having such a dramatic effect on the candidate actually winning, which is like these multi-billionaires, how much for the people are they? And one thing that you guys both were talking about was campaign finance laws. I mean, as far as I know, there are certain limitations to how much an individual can contribute to each political campaign, which is why they have to donate the money to these super PACs. But that's just a loophole.
Yeah, I think the super PACs are, I think we need to tighten up on that, right?
Yeah.
Because look, at the end of the day, and we started talking about this a little bit before the show, but I'm going to judge you based off of your campaigning, right? When I look at it, I'm going to look at what you're doing, how you're getting out there. And let's talk about the facts, right? The facts is that Trump is on the campaign trail, right? And we've already seen Trump as a president. Like, personally, I thought I didn't vote for him the first time around, but
what?
He literally,
this is news to me.
This is news.
I didn't say I didn't vote for him the second time around.
Okay.
But maybe not this. No, I'm just kidding. But at the end of the day, the reason what makes me kind of look at Trump and kind of say, hey, I might vote for him, is the fact that he's out there and he's just saying and doing everything he possibly can. He was at the Al Smith dinner, absolutely roasted Chuck Schumer, took shots at Kamala Harris, and he even made a joke. He was like, we're supposed to start this dinner off and I'm supposed to make some jokes about myself, but he's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, why would I take shots at myself when they've been taking shots at me? And I was like, yo, mic drop, straight the
It's the truth, man. The one thing I'll say is that as divisive as he is and as negative as certain opinions are on him, the one thing I can constantly give him credit for is that he is front and center always. Like, he doesn't shy away from the interviews. He doesn't shy away from any sort of publicity. He's constantly front and center, regardless of what people are going to say about him. And on the other side, again, regardless what you think of politics, Harris has been running more of a protected campaign where she hasn't had nearly like a third of the visibility of him.
But there was a town hall, right? There was a town hall meeting. What's a town hall? Like, it's literally where the crowd's supposed to be able to ask questions of you. Mm-hmm. I watched, and look, I get a lot of, I see a lot of videos pop up on my feed, but this one it came from Fox News, right? And it was a video of the town hall that Kamala just did. And literally one of the attendees in the audience was like, can we ask questions? And the host was like, no, we've already given her, you're not allowed to ask questions. I'm like, then what's the point of having a town hall?
Yeah.
Like, and that's my problem with Kamala is, number one, she has not been as visible, like you said. And Farah, you brought up, look, Trump's going on Joe Rogan, dude. Like,
yeah, he's supposed to go on Joe Rogan on Friday, and this is after they've already had some sort of discourse. So I feel like it's like one of those, like, in the ring, like ding ding, like, Joe Rogan versus Trump. And yesterday I was watching the news. I was seeing all these people on the campaign. Obama and Clinton are campaigning, and Tim Walz are campaigning for Kamala, but she's nowhere to be seen. She's apparently done these pre-recorded interviews that are going to get released this week, but she's not actively on the campaign trail, and it shows a little bit of apathy.
Dude, she was stupid enough to do an interview with Brett Baer on Fox.
I give her credit for that, though. I did actually watch that interview, and she didn't do badly. I feel like she acquitted herself well. I put a lot more blame on Brett Baer because he interrupted her a multitude of different times.
But I saw that, but here's the reason why. Like, what I saw when I watched it was he asked about immigration policies, right? And she goes, oh, let's talk about Donald Trump. And I'm like, dude, you're skirting around the question, right? He's asking about your border policies that evidently someone came in during the time you were there, and it's your border policy that let him in. And she skirted around it and tried to say, oh, let's talk about Donald Trump. I'm like, dude, I get it, but answer the question. Like, that's the way I felt about it. And look, I'm an independent. And there's a lot of people out there that are from that used to be Democrats that I know personally, that they are literally not considering voting Democrat, in that they're either not going to vote or they're going to vote Republican, because they look at the simple things, the things that I've talked about a million times, the gas prices, the grocery costs. Those are the things that they're looking at when they're making their decision. And to me, all I see is she's not taking accountability for her time right now, right? Her administration is part of Biden and Biden's administration, and they're not doing.
She's actually suffering from the same thing Biden suffered from initially when he was running his campaign before she took over, which is visibility. A lot of the criticism that was being levied against Joe Biden was the fact that he wasn't visible. He was hiding away in some bunker.
I mean, I think there were reasons for that. I don't think people wanted him to be seen because he's sundowning.
Which that's an excellent point. But now you're transitioning over to the supposedly much younger candidate, someone that should have more visibility, is trying to put her face out on the campaign trail. And you guys have been bringing up, yeah, you're right. Look, Trump is on the campaign trail and he excels at improving, right? And more so with Kamala, everything is pre-recorded because it has to be scripted. And this is not, again, very down the middle. If you're running a campaign, regardless of whether you are a conservative or a liberal, people want to know about the policies and they want you to be interacting with the actual people that these policies are affecting. And she hasn't done a great job of that.
Yeah. Listen, like I said, I'll respect the shit out of her if she gets on Theo Von. Because, dude, JD Vance was on with Theo Von literally like I think a day or so ago, man. And that's the type of shit I want to see, right? Like, if I'm going to elect a politician, I want them to be brought down to earth. I don't want to be scripted. I want to see. I want you to talk to me straight. I don't want the whole fancy Democratic, Republican responses. I want a layman's breakdown of it, because you know what? At the end of the day, look, I'm an educated person. I can understand the political language. I know exactly what you're saying, but there's a lot of people that aren't as educated and that don't understand that what you're saying is, and I'm going to call bullshit when I see it. And that's my whole point.
And that's what made me actually feel like, moving more towards Tim Walz, because, well, first of all, I'm probably going to vote for Kamala Harris, and that's only because of women's rights, because it's such a huge issue. I'm a woman. I care about those things. But also because, I feel like when I heard Tim Walz speaking, because she's not on the campaign trail, it made me like him even more, because he's actually a good speaker and he's actually appealing to the people. And the way that he was speaking to people, it was literally like at a concert. Like, he was saying like, and what do we want? And there's like, we want to win or whatever. And it makes her longevity not want to stick around. Yeah. She's not going to, personally, if she wants to run for another term, I wouldn't vote for her. I would only vote for her right now because of what's at stake.
Yeah. And literally, like, look, at the end of the day, that's the way it needs to be, right? You need a candidate that's going to appeal to you, that's going to say something that you want to hear. And they may be full of, but at least it's something that you're gonna, kind of embrace. And the one thing I will say is, look, I haven't done a shit ton of research about Walz, but I watched a little bit of the debate between him and JD Vance, right? And he was a politician and he did it well. And look, I'll say he's a politician. He's a good politician. Mm-hmm. With that being said, the Democrats should have put a better candidate out there.
They don't have appealability. The Tim Walz is more appealable than Kamala Harris. And I feel like she's suffering from kind of from like what you were saying, but also a tiny sense of entitlement, the same way that Hillary Clinton did, and then just got comfortable and now is not putting in that effort where Donald Trump is, even though I don't like the guy, but he's trying to appeal to the masses and to the working class. And that's why he went to a McDonald's and decided to serve people, even though McDonald's was closed, and they were his supporters and they were instructed how to order. He made some fries and he served them on a Sunday.
Imagine going to the drive-thru that day, even though it's a publicity stunt, and Donald Trump is there serving you your Happy Meal.
No, but it was completely like scripted. Like they like cherry-picked supporters to do the ordering. Otherwise, there was a sign on the door that says this McDonald's is closed today for blah blah blah.
Dude, I would have gotten a Big Mac signed by Donald Trump, and I would have never eaten that. And McDonald's is so processed, it wouldn't have aged.
It wouldn't have aged. No,
you could sell that on eBay.
25 years from now, you would have been able to sell it too.
25 years from, at the rate America's going, we would be able to elect that Big Mac as president.
It might be more competent than some of our options.
Listen, since we've brought up the Clintons, let's talk about sex trafficking.
Oh.
Listen. I hate the Clintons. I was as independent as it possibly could be, but the Clintons were the biggest artists I've ever seen in my life.
But I will say, even with all his scandals, it's sad to see that Bill Clinton is still more likable than Hillary. Like, I still think he's a very charismatic speaker.
But it's 2024. It's the year of sexual assault and rape. Let's bring up the Clintons. Did you hear about the Abercrombie and Fitch CEO or owner or whatever it is?
Mike Jeffries.
Just got indicted for sex trafficking and what you said it was like Jeffrey Epstein type, right?
It was literally cookie cutter because he had his partner doing all of the research and basically getting all of these young people to come in for him.
Yeah. And look, are we surprised?
No.
Yeah. I remember when in high school, right? In like 2000, I think 2005, 2006-ish. We graduated in what, 2006?
2006, yeah.
Yeah, I remember vividly going and seeing, that was when everyone was like popping their collar and doing all that dumb shit. I did it too, but whatever.
And it's actually made a resurgence too recently because they've rebranded and they've started reselling their clothes to to be more trendy, but it's to the same audience, us.
Yeah. But I remember when I would go through and you would walk through the malls and you would see Hollister and Abercrombie and, American Eagle and all these brands. They would like hire, a certain look. They would hire a certain thing. And it was like, when I felt kind of like I played football in high school and I was like, I couldn't fit into all those damn clothes. I was, a bigger dude. And I remember, when I would go in those stores and I would just see the employees there, like these skinny white surfer dudes with their hair flowing to the side.
Shirtless at the front.
And I'm like, bro, button your shirt, number one. Number two, who the fuck hired you?
But those are very carefully curated looks. I had a lot of friends, and I did interview to work there. But they had a very specific laundry list of things. Like you couldn't paint your nails a certain color. Your hair had to be made a very specific way, exactly what you were meant to wear. So they had this image that they were trying to portray and keep it.
But you think about that as an adult, right? Like at the time, yeah. But the reason I think about that shit as an adult now, like, look, you have an adult manager or an adult, employer looking at a child, sexualizing them in a certain sense. And then you're like, are we surprised this guy's sex trafficking kids?
No, they're basically being groomed.
They are being groomed. Yeah.
It's just like the Nickelodeon documentary, like that grooming shit is real. So my question to you guys is, what do you think we should do about this when it comes, should there be laws in place to really scrutinize companies that target children for employees?
Yes. I mean, it's hard to implement. I think in regards to clothing, clothing is always something that is usually heavily marketed toward the youth, right? Because of different trends that are happening in pop culture. An experience that I had was in my early to mid 20s, I was managing retail stores. So I worked for American Eagle. I managed an Abercrombie-like store called Who Are You? And they were basically the American, the Korean version of Abercrombie, and their larger brand was G-Star Raw. And a lot of the stuff that they had asked for with the types of employees that you hire and the type of image that you're trying to portray are essentially the laundry list of Abercrombie items. The employees that you hire, they have to look a certain way. They have to be, like, no joke, they have to fit into a certain type of clothing. If they didn't fit the look, they work in the stockroom. You know, so it's and honestly, like that's, you know, now that society is changing for the better in some ways with like cultural visibility, I don't think that that's necessarily an issue anymore. But back then it was just like the normal, right? If you're not a model, you're not working in the store, you're working, you know, elsewhere. So I do think that there should be certain procedures or company procedures that are put in place, like nationally, you know, to protect like kids of like a certain age or people below a certain age. The sexualization factor, I mean, certain companies have been dealing with that recently though, right? Especially some of like the luxury brands, if I'm not mistaken, you know, with like them coming out with like certain ads like aimed to children. I forget, like it was one major luxury brand.
I know what you're talking about. They had like mattresses and teddy bears and things like that. But I mean, there was a lot going on with that. I can't remember exactly the brand, but I know what you're talking about. But to that point, I think it has to start with the marketing. Because if you're taking photos and the photos are portraying these very youthful looking people, like that are supposed to, even if they're over 18, even if they're like in their 20s, they want people who look like they're 15 and 14. And so that's how they're trying to, you know, market to the youth. So I think it has to start with the marketing before you can even get to what's going on in the actual store itself, what's going on in the actual company itself. And
I do think, you know, Mike bringing up the Mike Jeffries situation, you know, this guy has been going through a multitude of different controversies ever since he stepped down, or ever since he was forced to step down from Abercrombie. I know there's a documentary about him. There have also been so many stories and maybe civil lawsuits brought against him with like sex parties that he used to host. And that really just goes to show you, again, circling back to money, right? And, you know, its effect on not only politics, but like society. Nowadays, it's great that social media and people in general have a little bit more of a voice, because back then it seems that when a lot of this stuff was happening, these people couldn't really say anything.
Yeah. And look, man, I mean, I think that's the beauty. That's one of the things I like about being a lawyer, is the fact that to a certain extent, I do feel like I have a little bit of power to protect kids, protect the youth, protect people from being from predatory people and companies like this. I've sued people, you know, that own companies here in Florida, Orlando, that literally, you know, sexually harass their clients and do certain stuff. I worked in, you know, this isn't something I try to hide at all, but I literally worked when I was 21, 22 years old. I was a manager of strip clubs here in Orlando. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, he was, folks.
And literally, man, like, look, strip clubs, they're my clients. Strippers, strip clubs. Like, I represent anyone. And the one thing that I will say is, working in that industry, it taught me there's a lot of predators out there, right? They sexualize people and take advantage of people for gain. And it's like, I mean, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy to see like the dark side of society. And look, I currently represent strip clubs, and I have to go to meetings in strip clubs. Never once do I ever sit and look and sexualize any of the dancers. Number one, they're my clients sometimes, or they're employees of my clients. So keep it super professional. But number two, the craziest thing is I always, you know, end up speaking to some of them, you know, while I'm either in meetings or so on and so forth. And I always hear the same things. And it's a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of clients that I get that are exposed to shit like that. And the shit they go through is intense. But, you know, segueing in, like, at the end of the day, these, like, now, like, I know, I don't think it's been formally announced really online too much, but look, I just had a kid, right?
Congratulations.
And I look at it as
Daddy-o.
look, I want to be able to protect my kid and other people's kids from predators out there. Right. So, look, I've just had a kid literally over the weekend. Josh, you had a kid about a year ago.
10 months ago, man. 10 months.
Farah's eventually going to have kids.
This is not an announcement. I am not with child. Why did you do this?
Well, I'm not saying that. But
She's giving a formal announcement maybe in the next 5 years.
But eventually you want kids, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that being said, now that you're not the target demographic and your children are about to be the target demographic, how do you view these things differently?
That's an excellent question. I think I look at it in the sense that imagery is very, very hard to control nowadays in regards to what is exposed to your child. When I look at the type of childhood Mike and I had, where we had to a game as simple as Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. We had to get a parent or someone that was old enough to buy us that game. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to play it. The internet wasn't nearly what it is now. In regards to like the accessibility that kids have. I didn't get my first cell phone until my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
And that was a regular flip phone where I was so happy to have like a Beverly Hills ringtone on it.
Yeah, internet.
Beverly Hills Cop ringtone on it. And, nowadays a kid who's in the 3rd grade has a cell phone that has complete accessibility to the internet. So, as a parent, like it is kind of scary, but, under the same token, you can only control the immediate circumstances. So, I can try to be on top of it, as much as I can and do the best job that I can as a parent. But, hopefully I can do half as good of a job as my parents because they dealt with a lot of shit.
Yeah. And so like,
Mike, you have both a teenager and a baby. So you have 2 different generations upcoming.
Yeah. And the way, it was hard. I've been dealing with it, for a long time. I know my stepson, Caden, I've been in his life, basically since he was a baby. Me and my wife were literally kind of seeing each other from very, very, when he was very young. So I've been around him since he was a baby, but we didn't start living together really until like 5 years, when he was around 5 years old. So, me and Joel had a baby, Atticus, over the weekend, and literally I sat down and talked to, my stepson, and I was like, look, this doesn't change anything, right? Like, I'm still going to try to treat you guys the same. I was raised very rough, very tough, very strict guidance from my parents. And, I try to raise Caden the same way. But one of the biggest things with me is like, I've been trying to protect him from certain things. I would limit what kinds of games he plays. I would limit the sort of things who he's around, because I know the external factors that can play. There's a lot of things I used to monitor from him. And the one thing I will say is when I had the baby, I've never had to be responsible for like a little human from day 0 to, literally for the rest of my life. And I will say, I remember after leaving the hospital, I went to go, we went up to the room and I left the hospital to go grab some food, for everyone because we hadn't eaten all day. And, Joel was a champ, but I just wanted to make sure she was okay. Literally, I left the hospital and I remember I was just like, worrying started hitting me, right? I started worrying about like, fuck, I got to like make sure, this kid's going to be okay. Like just making sure the doctors don't fuck with him. Like it was just like something that hit me right off rip. And now I'm sitting here and I see the shit that's going on, and I'm like, fuck, man, like you got to really, really analyze what your kid's exposed to and how can you protect them. And it's just, I don't know, man, having a newborn and becoming like basically a father from the beginning stages really just made me reevaluate a lot in the past like 3-4 days, so it's crazy, man. I think having a kid, it really does, like the laws protecting children, the laws allowing you as a parent to be able to interact with your kid. I think it's so much more important now, and from my position, because like, dude, there's nothing I would give to be able to experience the birth of my child, and I wouldn't want to miss that shit for the world. And just the past 3 days experiencing, just seeing him just kind of be 3 days old is pretty cool, so I don't know. I just don't know what we can do, but I do think like laws, period, protecting kids and making sure kids are protected from companies, from anyone that does shit like this. We need to make sure we address that issue,
Yeah, kids are, I mean, look, when I think about myself as a young kid, even as young as like 5 or 6 years old, my girlfriend, she has a, wonderful little daughter from a prior relationship, who just turned 7, and to see how she picks up on certain things, right? Like they're much smarter than they let on, or much smarter than I think even adults would give kids credit for. Because I know, like, I was so curious as a little kid, wanting to, your parent tells you not to do something, and you're like, you know what? Like, what if I do this?
Somebody gonna get hurt real bad.
That was me.
Yeah.
I got my butt beat quite a few times. So, yeah, parenthood is a trip, man. It really is. But Mike, man, congratulations, dude. You're already an incredible father to Caden. You're gonna be an incredible father to Atticus.
So when so right before he was born, we were sitting in the hospital, I typed up a little eviction notice.
I saw that.
That
I
was
like,
hilarious.
oh my God.
I'm gonna put it on screen for you folks to see, but it was very, very funny.
It was ridiculous, but it was so Mike. It was 100% the type of thing he would do.
But the reason being is, number one, that baby is bred to be a lawyer, and I wanted everyone to know it. So, but no, it was really fun. I gotta, I'm so grateful for the doctors over at Winter Park. They did a great job, with him. Everyone on the floor knew he was a lawyer's son by the end of the day, because he had that little eviction notice, and it was funny. People were like, there were staff members that were like, "Oh, we saw that paper and we got worried," and then they read it and they were just cracking up. So like, look, man. Part of why I do this job is obviously to make it fun. Part of why we do this podcast is to make this job fun. We're in a job, being a lawyer is not fun at all. We deal with people's problems, but I think in my life, I try to make my job, my life, as fun as possible. And look, I appreciate everyone congratulating me for the baby, but most importantly, I appreciate you guys for doing this with me. I appreciate the audience are watching. I appreciate everything. This firm, this life that we get to live, and we're able to provide, for our kids and future kids. It's going to be amazing, man. And I just can't wait to keep doing it.
Well, we love you, brother.
So what I'm hearing is, if we want something, ask you now, because he seems to be in a very good mood.
No.
Well, again, Mike, look, congratulations. Jola back home, holding the fort down with the young baby boy. So, guys, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Onlylawsuits podcast. We had a couple suggestions from one of our prior episodes. Next week, we're going to be covering digital identity theft. That's one of the subjects that one of our viewers wanted to talk about, and another wanted us to get more in depth about insurance policies. So, thanks again for tuning in. Leave any suggestions in the comments below, and until next time.
Peace.
Bye.